Hey there, and welcome. So, have you ever thought about your birthday? I mean, really thought about it? Most of us just figure, it's a random day, a roll of the dice. But what if I told you it's not random at all? It turns out there are some pretty powerful social and even psychological forces at play that decide when we're born. And today, we're going to dig right into them.
All right, let's just start with the most basic question here. Do you think birthdays are spread out pretty evenly over the whole year? I mean, it makes sense, right? You'd expect about the same number of people to be born on, say, March 5th as October 22nd. But the actual data? It tells a completely different story.
Okay, so check this out. What you're seeing here is a heat map of birthdays in the US going back a couple of decades, and it just blows that random theory right out of the water. See, the darker the square, the more common the birthday. And whoa, just look at that dark band. It's like a river flowing right through late summer and into the fall, especially September. And then you've got these really light, almost white spots. And where are they? They're all clumped together around some very specific, very familiar dates. So yeah, that big dark patch on the map, that leads us straight to our first big pattern, the September birthday boom. It's the biggest trend in the data, hands down. And the reason for it is, well, it's actually pretty simple, at first anyway. And I mean, it's not just a little bump, it's a huge concentration. Get this, 9 of the top 10 most common birthdays in the US are all in September. The number one most common birthday? September 9th. This is no fluke, it's a pattern that shows up year after year after year. So the obvious question is why? Well, you just have to do the math. Count back 9 months from all those September birthdays and where do you land? Yep, right smack in the middle of December. You've got the winter holidays, people have time off, there are parties, it's cold outside. It all adds up to a pretty big spike in conceptions. Okay, but hold on. This is where it gets really weird, kind of paradoxical. The very time of year that's so popular for making babies is the exact same time of year that's the least popular for having them. And this is where the story takes a fascinating turn. And the proof is just, it's staring us right in the face when you look at the least common birthdays. I mean, what do all these dates have in common? They're all huge holidays. Christmas Day is dead last, the single rarest day of the year to be born. Right behind it, New Year's Day, Christmas Eve, the 4th of July. This isn't just a coincidence. It's a clear-cut pattern of avoidance. So how is that even possible? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Modern medicine. Think about it. Today, a huge chunk of all births are scheduled. You've got C-sections making up nearly a third of them, and inductions are another quarter, at least. That gives doctors and parents a ton of control over the exact date. And, well, nobody really wants to schedule a major medical procedure on Christmas Day. And the effect isn't small, it's actually dramatic. We're talking about a 30 to 40% drop in births on a big holiday compared to the days right before and after it. That's not just a little dip, that is a massive crater in the data. And it's almost entirely because we can now schedule one of the most fundamental things in life. But here's the thing, it wasn't always like this. Not even close. In fact, if you go back just 100 years or so, you find the complete opposite was happening. This is a story of then versus now, and it shows just how much our whole mindset has shifted. So picture this, it's the early 1900s. Pretty much all babies are born at home, and the birth certificate, it's not filled out right there on the spot. This created a little bit of, let's call it, wiggle room. And back then, parents actually wanted holiday birthdays for their kids. They would actively claim them. Today, we actively try to avoid them. It is a total 180-degree flip. And you can see it so clearly in the historical data. Just look at these huge spikes on New Year's Day and Christmas. It's incredible. Researchers have a great name for this. They call it basking in reflected glory. The idea was that parents wanted their kid's birth to be associated with a big celebratory day, or even a famous person like George Washington. It was all about connection and shared importance, which is just the polar opposite of how we think today, with our focus on convenience and having your own special day. And the craziest example of this, Christmas Day. Back in the early 1900s, there was a 66% surplus of births claimed on Christmas, compared to the days right next to it. That's not just a small trend, that's a massive cultural statement about wanting to tie your child's identity to something big and important. Okay, so we've established we used to want these big, important birthdays, but now we avoid them. And it's not just holidays we avoid, it's also dates we think are, well, unlucky. This gets us to a really fascinating psychological idea that explains why we're so averse to certain dates.
And that idea is called magical thinking. Basically, it's this subconscious belief we all have that things can pass their qualities to other things just by touching or being associated with them. Like good luck or bad luck can rub off on you. It sounds kind of silly and irrational when you say it out loud, but honestly, we all do it. Here's a perfect example from a famous study. Researchers took a brand new, perfectly clean fly swatter and used it to stir a pitcher of lemonade. Now, would you want to drink that lemonade? For most people, the answer is a hard no. Rationally, you know the fly swatter is clean. There's zero health risk. But just the idea of a fly swatter, what we associate it with, it just contaminates the lemonade in our minds. It suddenly feels gross. And that's exactly the same principle at work with birthdays. That feeling, that aversion to a negative association, is why you also see dips in births on dates like Friday the 13th or even Halloween. It's that little voice in the back of your head thinking, I don't want the bad luck or the spookiness of that day to magically rub off on my kid. So when you put it all together, the seasonal patterns, the history, the psychology, what's the big takeaway here? It's that your birthday is so much more than just a random date on a calendar.
Really, what shapes these patterns is this crazy mix of things. You've got the simple biology of seasonal trends, sure, but then you layer on the massive power of medical technology, or very human desire to shape our kids' identity, and even these deep-seated irrational superstitions. In the end, our birthdays aren't just given to us. In a very real way, they're socially constructed. And that really leaves us with one last big question to think about. If our culture, our beliefs, and our technology can have such a huge impact on something as fundamental as the day we're born, well, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other big patterns in our lives are being shaped by forces we don't even see?